far beyond the twinkling stars of the Milky Way, deep in the uncharted shadows of space. A small, fragile signal cut through the endless dark. The message came from a race called the Zathari, beings known for their peaceful ways and shimmering, blue-green skin. Their homeworld, a lush planet named Sira, had always been a beacon of calm in a universe often torn by conflict. But now, Sira was silent except for this desperate call for help, a warning sent not through loud shouts or aggressive demands, but in trembling bursts of data, a plea for allies against a terrible enemy that loomed like a storm on the horizon. The Galactic Council received the signal first, and many listened with growing concern. The Zathari spoke of an enemy called the Varkon Empire, a brutal force sweeping through star systems, leaving destruction in their wake. They begged for support, for strength beyond their own, knowing their own armies were not enough to stop the dark tide. The news spread quickly across the stars, reaching Earth, a planet newly awakened to the vastness of the galaxy. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Council, still learning the ways of space diplomacy and alien politics. For most humans, the idea of aliens was still strange, but the message from the Zathari was clear. Danger was near, and help was needed. Yet on Earth, fear and suspicion rose faster than hope. Governments and military leaders debated fiercely behind closed doors. Some saw the Zathari's call as genuine, a cry for friendship in the face of a terrible threat. But others viewed it with deep mistrust. After all, Earth had faced threats before, hidden enemies, spies, and dangers lurking in shadows. Was this signal a trap? A clever trick by some unknown foe to pull Earth into a war it could not win? The possibility made many uneasy. High-ranking officials decided caution was better than trust. They ordered the military to prepare for the worst, increasing patrols in Earth's orbit and readying weapons not for peace, but for defense against a possible alien invasion. On the other side, the Zathari envoys tried their best to explain their true intent. They sent ambassadors and messages explaining that the Varkon Empire had destroyed entire planets and enslaved millions. Their own soldiers fought bravely, but were losing ground every day. They begged Earth to stand with them, to join a coalition, to protect innocent lives. But Earth's leaders heard only threat and uncertainty. A stubborn faction, convinced that humans should never be caught off guard again, pushed for preemptive action. They argued that if the Zathari were vulnerable, then other enemies might see Earth as weak, a prize to be taken. Thus, what was meant to be a call for friendship twisted slowly into a prelude to war. As the days passed, tension rose like a thick fog. Rumors and paranoia spread quickly through Earth's cities and space stations. Ordinary people watched the skies with growing fear, unsure whether the stars held salvation or destruction. The media reported stories of alien ships spotted near the solar system's edge, though none could be confirmed. Satellites scanned every corner, searching for signs of hostile movement. Meanwhile, on Sira, the Zathari faced their own despair. Their leaders gathered in the great crystal halls, eyes weary but determined. They wondered if Earth would hear their true voice, or if fear would blind both worlds to a chance for peace. As the Varkon Empire's shadow grew nearer, both races stood at a crossroads, their fates entwined but separated by mistrust and fear. The signal, once a simple plea for help, now hung in the balance, a fragile thread between war and hope, waiting to be pulled by the choices of those who dared to listen. The tension that had been quietly building on Earth exploded into chaos, faster than anyone expected, and it began with a single tragic mistake. After the urgent warnings from the Zathari and the growing fear among Earth's leaders, the military was put on high alert. Satellites and space probes were sent to closely monitor Sira and the nearby regions, searching for signs of enemy forces. At first there was only silence, but then a faint blip appeared on the radar, a ship moving too close to Earth's outer defenses to be ignored. The military commanders debated what to do, and suspicion hardened their hearts. Some argued the ship was a scout sent to spy on Earth. Others believed it might be a trap to lure their fleets away from home. Diplomatic channels were open but slow, tangled in mistrust and impatience. The Zathari envoys insisted the vessel was theirs, a routine patrol ship returning from reconnaissance, but their words fell on deaf ears. In a moment of fear and pressure, Earth's leaders ordered a strike. A powerful missile was launched into space, aimed to disable the unknown ship before it could pose a threat. The attack hit, sending the vessel spinning through the void in flames. The impact shattered the fragile hope that remained, turning a plea for help into a call for war. The Zathari were stunned and horrified. Their patrol ship had no weapons, no hostile intent. It was simply doing its duty to watch for the approaching Varkhan forces. Now, with their peace broken by Earth's missile, their anger and desperation flared. The Zathari quickly regrouped, preparing their defense and sending out warnings of a human attack. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the news of the strike was met with mixed reactions. Some hailed it as a necessary defense, proof that Earth would not be caught unprepared. Others, including many diplomats and scientists, feared it was a terrible mistake that could ignite a war no one wanted. As the days passed, the Zathari retaliated, attacking Earth's unmanned space stations and disrupting communications satellites. Human pilots scrambled to defend their orbit, but the Zathari's advanced technology gave them the upper hand. Skirmishes erupted across space, each side striking and withdrawing, testing the other's strength. The once clear message of alliance and support became lost beneath layers of suspicion and bloodshed. On Earth, the public was torn. Some called for peace, urging their leaders to stop the fighting and listen to the Zathari's true plea. Others demanded the military take a hard stance, viewing the aliens as enemies who had betrayed their trust. The media fueled the fire, with sensational stories painting both sides as villains and heroes. Yet, beneath the noise, a few brave souls worked quietly to restore dialogue. Among them was Dr. Liana Reyes, a linguist and communication expert, who had long studied the Zathari language and culture. She believed the conflict was born from misunderstanding and hoped she could find a way to translate not just words, but intentions. With the help of a young Zathari envoy named Kale, she began sending messages into space, carefully crafted to explain Earth's fear and desire for peace. But time was running out. The Varkhan Empire, watching from the shadows, began to move. Their massive fleets approached, ready to take advantage of the rift between the two races. Both humans and Zathari now faced not only each other, but the true threat they had ignored. The war that began with a misstep was spiraling out of control, and the question remained, could Earth and Syra find a way to stop fighting before it was too late? The answer rested on fragile trust and the courage to see beyond fear, a challenge that would test the heart of humanity and the soul of the Zathari. The war between Earth and the Zathari was far from the quick, decisive battle some had imagined. Instead, it settled into a tense and exhausting struggle where each side tested the other's limits, and hope seemed to flicker like a candle in a storm. At first, humans believed their numbers and courage would win the day, but the Zathari fought with a skill and technology unlike anything Earth had faced before. Their ships moved swiftly and silently, their weapons precise and devastating, forcing human pilots to retreat more than once, their confidence shaken by the enemy's unexpected strength. The human commanders soon realized that this was no ordinary war, but a clash between two worlds with deep fears and misunderstandings buried beneath the fighting. As losses mounted on both sides, many began to question the purpose of the conflict, wondering if this war was truly necessary or if it was fueled by fear and poor judgment. Among the human pilots, a young man named Marcus Kane stood out, not just for his skill in the cockpit, but for the doubts that filled his mind. Marcus had joined the fleet eager to defend Earth, but the more battles he fought, the more he saw the tragedy of war. One night during a break from combat, he discovered a hidden communication file that changed everything. It was a recording of the original Zathari distress call, a message full of hope and pain, not threats. The words spoke of desperate need, of a desire to protect innocent lives from the Varkhan Empire's cruelty, and a wish to stand together, not fight. Marcus felt a sharp pain in his chest. How had this message been misunderstood so badly? He began to speak quietly with fellow pilots and officers, sharing what he had learned, planting seeds of doubt in minds hardened by battle. Meanwhile, back on Earth, public opinion was shifting. The news outlets that once screamed for war now aired stories of the human cost. interviews with families who lost loved ones, and the voices of diplomats and scientists calling for peace. A growing movement of people demanded their leaders seek a way to end the fighting and listen to the Zathari's true message. But not everyone agreed. Hardliners in the government still insisted that any alien was a potential enemy and that Earth must be prepared for endless war. The tension at home matched the tension in space, and Marcus found himself caught between his duty as a soldier and his conscience as a human being. In the midst of this turmoil, the Zathari sent a bold signal, a proposal for a temporary ceasefire to discuss peace. It was a risky move, one that could have been ignored or rejected with deadly consequences. But the message reached Earth's leaders and sparked heated debate. After long nights of arguments, they agreed to a limited truce, hoping to avoid further destruction and find a way back from the edge of war. The truce was fragile. Both sides watched each other warily, ready to resume fighting at the slightest sign of betrayal. During the ceasefire talks, Marcus met Kale, the young Zathari envoy, who had worked tirelessly to build a bridge between the two races. Their conversations opened Marcus's eyes to the pain and hope of the alien people, their love for their home, and their desperate wish for peace. Through Kale, Marcus learned that the Varkhan Empire was already moving closer, using the conflict between Earth and Sira as a distraction to expand their reach. This revelation sparked a new sense of urgency. If humans and Zathari did not unite, the Varkhan would conquer them both with ease. Slowly, old fears began to fall away, replaced by a growing respect and understanding. The truce, once seen as a fragile pause, became a chance for real cooperation. Scientists and engineers from both sides worked together, sharing technology and knowledge. Soldiers trained side by side, learning each other's strengths and strategies. The war that had seemed endless now showed signs of changing direction. Marcus, once a fighter torn by doubt, found new purpose in becoming a messenger of peace, helping his people see the value in unity. Yet, even as hope grew, danger lurked. The Varkhan Empire, aware of this new alliance forming, accelerated their plans to strike before Earth and Sira could fully join forces. Spies infiltrated both planets, sabotage threatened critical infrastructure, and every victory was shadowed by the looming threat of a much larger war. The turning tide was not just a shift in battle. It was a race against time, a test of whether two very different peoples could overcome fear and mistrust before the darkness swallowed them whole. And so, with every heartbeat and every step taken toward peace, the future remained uncertain, hanging by a thread as fragile as the trust now building between Earth and the Zathari. The fragile peace between Earth and the Zathari held on by a thread, barely strong enough to keep the fire of war from raging again. But it gave both sides a moment, a rare, precious chance to understand what had truly brought them to the brink of destruction. Behind closed doors in a secret space station floating between Earth and Sira, a rogue human commander named Captain Elena Ward met with Kyle, the young Zathari envoy who had become the symbol of hope for unity. Their meeting was risky, hidden from the eyes of hardliners on both planets who still believed any contact was betrayal. Yet Elena and Kale knew that if they did not try, the war would consume them all before the Varkhan Empire's shadow even reached their doorstep. Elena, a hardened soldier who had seen too much loss, carried the weight of every fallen comrade on her shoulders. At first, she found it hard to trust Kale, who spoke with a calm voice and eyes full of quiet pain. But as they shared stories of their people's hopes and fears, the walls between them began to crumble. Kale revealed the true horror the Zathari faced, the slow, relentless destruction of their homes and families by the Varkhan Empire's ruthless advance. He told Elena about the peaceful society they had built, their dreams for a future without violence, and how the human attack had shattered their trust, pushing them toward war not out of desire but out of survival. Elena shared her own story, the fear and anger that had driven Earth's leaders to prepare for the worst, and the soldiers' struggle to understand who the real enemy was. Together they realized that both sides had been victims of fear and misunderstanding, their actions shaped by shadows rather than truth. As their talks continued, They worked on a secret plan, a way to use the truce not just to stop fighting, but to build a real alliance. They agreed to send a joint message to the Galactic Council, revealing the threat of the Varkon Empire and asking for urgent help, hoping that by standing together, humans and Zathari could force the universe to take notice. But their plan was fragile. Word of their secret meetings leaked to extremists who saw the truce as weakness, and soon threats of violence and sabotage rose on both planets. On Earth, factions pushed for an end to talks, claiming that the Zathari could never be trusted. On Sira, some warriors called for vengeance, blaming humans for the war and demanding retribution. Elena and Kale found themselves walking a tightrope between hope and despair, knowing that one wrong move could destroy everything. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows beyond the known galaxy, the Varkon Empire prepared their assault. Their leaders had watched the fragile peace with cold calculation, waiting for the perfect moment to strike when Earth and Syra were weakest, distracted and divided by their own fears. The Empire's ships moved closer, ready to unleash destruction on both worlds at once, confident that chaos would make conquest easier. The knowledge of this impending attack spread among the leaders who sought peace, adding urgency and fear to every decision. Elena and Kale called for one last, desperate meeting, a chance to show their people that the only way to survive was together. They arranged a broadcast to all humans and Zathari, a message not of fear or blame, but of unity and courage. As the transmission began, millions watched and listened, some with anger, others with hope. The message spoke of shared loss, common enemies, and the power of working side by side to protect the future. It was a gamble, risking everything on the belief that understanding could stop the war. As the final words echoed through space, a silence followed, heavy and uncertain. Then, far away in the depths of the galaxy, the first signals of the Varkon attack appeared on sensors, the warning that time was almost up. The choice was clear: continue fighting each other and fall to the true enemy, or stand together and face the darkness united. The chance for understanding had come, but the question remained: would they take it before it was too late? The moment had come when words alone could no longer protect them. Earth and Syra now stood side by side, not as enemies, but as allies, ready to face the terrifying storm of the Varkon Empire together, a united front forged from desperation and hope. The days following the broadcast were filled with hurried preparations, as scientists, engineers, and soldiers from both worlds worked feverishly to merge their strengths, combining human resilience and adaptability with Zathari technology that seemed almost magical in its power and precision. Spaceships once designed to fight one another were redesigned and rebuilt to fight as one force, with mixed crews learning to trust and rely on each other in the harsh vacuum of space. Marcus Kane, the young pilot who had first questioned the war, found himself at the heart of this alliance, flying missions with Zathari comrades, sharing stories and strategies, and discovering in their eyes the same desire for peace and survival that burned within him. The people on both planets watched nervously as fleets gathered, knowing that the Varkon Empire's Dark Armada was closing in fast, a tide of destruction that could crush their worlds if they failed to stand strong. As the first battle loomed, tension still flickered beneath the surface. Old fears, old wounds, but leaders on both sides reminded their people that this fight was no longer about blame or revenge. It was about existence. When the Varkon ships finally appeared on the horizon, black and massive against the stars, the joint fleet was ready, though the fear in the pilots' hearts was still very real. The battle began with a violent roar as the first weapons fired, lighting up the darkness with flashes of blue and orange. The Varkon Empire fought with brutal efficiency, their ships armed with weapons designed to annihilate whole fleets, but the combined human Zathari forces countered, with unexpected tactics born from their blend of experience and alien technology. Human pilots, once used to solo dogfights, learned to operate in tight formations with Zathari warriors, covering each other's blind spots and sharing data instantly through new communication systems. On the ground, scientists monitored the battle and adapted strategies in real time, sending reinforcements to critical points and repairing ships faster than ever before. In the midst of the chaos, heroes emerged, pilots who risked everything to protect their allies, engineers who stayed behind to keep vital systems running, diplomats who worked tirelessly to maintain trust between their people. Marcus and Cale fought side by side, their bond a symbol of what was possible when fear was replaced by courage and understanding. The turning point came when the Allied fleet managed to break through the Varkon lines and strike at the heart of the enemy command ship, crippling its control over the vast armada. This blow sent shockwaves through the Varkon forces, scattering their ships and throwing their plans into disarray. Yet victory was not guaranteed. The Varkon Empire unleashed their final weapon, a massive planet-sized war machine capable of destroying entire worlds with a single strike. The Allied forces scrambled to devise a plan to stop it, knowing that failure would mean the end for both Earth and Syra. In a desperate gamble, Marcus led a small squadron deep into enemy territory to disable the weapon from the inside, risking their lives to save millions. The mission was dangerous and nearly cost them everything, but their courage and teamwork prevailed, and the war machine was destroyed moments before it could fire. As silence fell over the battlefield, relief mixed with exhaustion washed over the Allied fleets. The victory was hard-earned and costly, but it proved that humans and Zathari could overcome fear and distrust to fight for a future worth living. Back on their home worlds, celebrations erupted, but so did solemn remembrance for those who had given their lives. The war had changed them all, and the scars would remain. Yet, from the ashes of conflict rose a new hope, one of unity, respect, and shared strength. Leaders on both planets vowed never to allow fear to blind them again, to build a lasting peace and protect their alliance from threats both external and internal. The story of the United Front spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other races to reconsider old grudges and look for new friendships. Humanity had taken a giant step forward, proving that their greatest power was not in their weapons, but in their ability to come together when it mattered most. The future was still uncertain, but now it was a future they would face together. The war was over, but the true challenge had only just begun. Earth and Syra now faced the daunting task of rebuilding not only their damaged worlds, but also the fragile trust that had taken years of fear and bloodshed to restore, knowing that any mistake could shatter the peace they had fought so hard to win. Cities on both planets lay in ruins, their skies still darkened by smoke and the scars of battle, while countless families mourned lost loved ones and faced uncertain futures. Yet, amid the destruction, there was a new energy, a shared determination to rise above the past and create something better, a future where humans and Zathari could live not as enemies, but as partners in a vast and often hostile universe. Leaders from Earth and Syra formed a joint council, working day and night to set up systems that would prevent misunderstandings and conflicts from spiraling out of control again. They established shared missions in science, culture, and defense, blending their strengths to explore the stars with open minds and united hearts. Marcus Kane, now a symbol of the Alliance, traveled between worlds, speaking to young people on both planets, telling stories of the battles fought and the friendships forged, inspiring a new generation to see beyond fear and hatred. Cale stood beside him, his voice steady and full of hope, reminding everyone that peace was a choice made every day, not just a goal achieved in war. But not all were ready to embrace this new beginning. On both Earth and Syra, pockets of resistance remained. Those who remembered the pain too deeply or clung to old grudges, afraid that trusting the other side meant giving up their identity or safety. Secret groups worked to undermine the alliance, spreading rumors and stirring unrest, hoping to pull their people back into conflict. Elena Ward, now a high-ranking officer and peacemaker, worked tirelessly to expose these threats and bring them into the light, believing that understanding and justice were the only way to heal the wounds that still festered beneath the surface. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows beyond the Alliance's reach, the Varkon Empire nursed their defeat but did not disappear. Their leaders retreated to plan a return, their hatred for both humans and Zathari growing sharper with every passing day, and the Alliance knew they could not let their guard down. To prepare, they launched joint training programs and developed new technologies that combined their unique knowledge, readying themselves for whatever dangers might lurk in the dark corners of space. The Galactic Council, impressed by the courage and resilience shown by Earth and Syra, offered support and welcomed them as full members, opening doors to new friendships and alliances with other races. As peace slowly spread, trade routes reopened, and cultural exchanges flourished, allowing humans and Zathari to learn from each other in ways that went far beyond the battlefield. Festivals celebrated their unity, art and music blended styles from both worlds, and families found joy in new friendships that crossed the boundaries once set by fear. Yet, even as life blossomed, the memory of war remained a powerful reminder that peace was precious and fragile. Marcus often stood under the stars, looking out into the vastness of space, feeling both hope and caution. He knew that new challenges would come, that old enemies might rise again. But he believed that together, humans and Zathari had shown the strength to face whatever lay ahead. The story of their alliance was still being written, a story of mistakes turned to lessons, fear transformed into trust, and enemies becoming friends. It was a story not just of survival, but of new beginnings, where two very different peoples had chosen to reach across the void and build a future together, lighting a path for others to follow. In the quiet moments between the stars, that hope shone brightest, a beacon in the darkness, promising that even after the darkest wars, new dawns could rise.